Really excited to kick this project off, especially considering the current situation and the fact that the automotive industry in general sort of needs to band together. So an initiative by TyreConnect to bring in industry experts and also our host, Vonnie Cossier, to run a bi-weekly session just to share insights mostly and ask questions and support each other mostly. So without further ado, I think we'll jump into it. I'll pass on to our brilliant celebrity host, Vonnie Cossier, and she'll introduce Josh, and then we'll kick it off. So over to you, Vonnie. Thanks.
Hi everybody. Thank you, George. Nice little intro there. Nice to see a few of you jumped online this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. As George said, this is a meet that will be hopefully continuing over the months ahead. We're in times of a little bit of challenge and crisis at the moment, so we did believe that this was the best time to jump in and work together. So I want to say a big thank you to TyreConnect for bringing me on and having me here as a host today. And we are going beyond tyres today. So you're going to hear from a range of experts. You're going to hear from Josh Scheffer as first guest and special speaker. So if you have any questions along the way, something might come to mind. You can go to the bottom of your screen there. You'll see a type your message box. You can put in your questions there, and George is going to ferry them across and we'll answer them in the Q&A, just to save all that crossover with asking questions along the way. So again, thanks so much for your presence today. I'm going to be your host. So some of you might know me from the reality show, The Block. You're probably thinking, what is she doing here? She probably knows not a lot about tyres or the automotive industry, which is true. However, if I can build a room a week, I can definitely be your host for today. So let's get straight into it. I'd like to welcome Josh Scheffer. So please welcome him. He is a National Fixed Operations Manager at Autopact, and he is a fixed in expert operations with the dealership and profitability. So there's a lot here today that he has to share with us. And in times of the challenges that we're hearing and we're having during COVID-19, some of this information will be very valuable, both personally and also for the service industry.
Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. For the people who don't know me, I'll probably introduce myself and give you a bit of a bio on my history in the automotive space. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've been in this game for 30 odd years as of 2020. So I started my apprenticeship in a Ford dealership in Sydney. From there, worked up my trade, which was auto electrical, and then eventually worked into another Ford dealership before I moved to the Gold Coast. And I worked at a Ford dealership up there. I was planning to travel my way around Australia and jump from Ford dealership to Ford dealership. So I ended up living in Rockhampton after that. 2 years into it, decided to come back to Sydney and eventually worked my way up to service management level in Ford dealerships. And then I jumped across to a Toyota dealership, which was the first dealership I worked for with AHG. I stayed there for 5-6 years approximately. And then by that time, well into my career with family included, we decided to take a year off and drive around Australia. So we did that in 2013. AHG was lucky, was good enough, I should say, to allow me to come back, and I ended up in the state manager's role for Victoria. So I moved the family down to Victoria, which was initially a bit of a worry, thinking that it was grey skies and rain every day in Melbourne, but it's actually not a bad place. And I was there for 6 years as the state manager for AHG in service, and now I am currently the fixed operations manager, national fixed operation manager for Autopact. So Autopact is based in 3 states. We've got dealerships in metropolitan Melbourne, which are Ford, BMW and VW dealerships. And then we've got dealerships as far north in Queensland as Rockhampton, predominantly based on the Sunshine Coast. Then we've got Brisbane and Tweed. And then in our New South Wales, we have very regional rural dealers, which gives us a bit of diversity again, compared to the normal of the metropolitan dealers that most of you probably jumping online are possibly from, which is we've got Dubbo, 2 dealerships there, 1 in Orange, 2 in Bathurst and 2 in Wollongong. So it's a very different sort of business to where I was previously. So
that's great. All right, so let's jump straight into it, Josh, and hear a little bit about how we can go about these COVID times and what we can do in the service industry to help ourselves and the businesses.
Yeah, look, it's definitely, as I said, 30 years of seeing dealerships or being involved in dealerships. This is beyond anything that could be planned. It's a crazy time. I'd love to have the crystal ball, as many people would love to have the crystal ball, and when it's going to stop, and we could plan accordingly. But I don't think anyone has that answer. I think it's fair to say, in my own opinion, this is not the business's opinion, but in my opinion, given that this has sort of just come on so quickly, and I had an incentive with my service managers planned for the Formula One in Melbourne, obviously, and that was Friday, March the 13th, I think it is. It's 42 days ago that was, and how quickly our industry, the world, has changed in that time is amazing. On a positive, I think it's on the way down, as in on the way back to where we've gotten over the worst, or the predicted worst that was planned, and the worry of all of that is, I suppose, in my opinion, again, is definitely we're on the return. So I suppose my initial thoughts on everything like that is it'd be great for it to come sooner rather than later. And I'll run through some slides about where my thoughts are on the industry. And I think look, there is light at the end of the tunnel, that's for sure. So I'll get you to just change the slide there, George. I think I'm personally very optimistic. I think there's a lot in this space that you can't control, though. It's very, at the moment, government-driven, government deciding what you can and can't do. The government's, shutdowns and really controlling, which for an Australian public is not the norm. We have a free country, and we get to enjoy it, and it's the greatest country in the world. But they've got the worries of it, and I fully support everything they've done so far. But I think what we've really got to do from a business point of view is remain optimistic. If we're all doom and gloom and negative and all that, which is very un-Australian, then we will probably take a hell of a lot longer to get out of this.
And as a leader, Josh, because this is exactly what you are, as a leader, how are you leading your teams to move away from that negative mindset and think about how to adapt here? But also, I don't think it is all negative, and the word issues and negative are words that I actually haven't used a whole lot, because personally myself, I've had to come up with some challenges with my work also, and I've had to adapt. And to be honest, I think in this adaptation and what we're going through right now, having to take everything virtual, maybe before we were doing a little of it, but now pretty much everything we're doing is virtual. It's on the phone, and it's video conferencing, it's video sessions for everything, FaceTime, etc. And I think it's been a great thing, because this is the way of the future, no matter what way we look at it. And what have you been able to adopt and adapt in your workspace there for your team?
Yeah, so in my business, as I said, we're 3 different states. I would spend a lot of time at the airport, traveling to and from, and there's still a lot that you need to do in one-on-one situations and working with the dealerships on the site. But it's also amazing how, yes, the technology was always there, but it was never really embraced till more so. I think it was forced on us to be using what we could and what we have in front of us. And I think ultimately, it's in the service space still. From a management point of view, dealing with my staff and doing all of that can be done from a distance as best as it can. It's still the economy is still driven by the cars that come in the door in the service department in our business. So we can't do that part remotely. We need the person or the customer to drive their car to us. And I think the initial thought of coming to a business, and the service departments have done a lot around the space to make it more welcoming in tougher environments, and we've got all the COVID-19 actions that needed to be put into businesses all across the group. So thankfully we're still open. That's the main thing.
Yes, and I think that there'd be some of our attendees today that might want to ask some questions about that too. So just as we're moving through this, and Josh is speaking with you, and we're moving through the slides, everyone, please feel free to type in a question there, because I know this has probably affected you all in different ways on different levels. So if there's a question that either Josh himself, George, or one of the team can answer directly, we've got Frank joining us later as well. Please pop it down there. I can see a couple of you are already asking some questions, which is awesome. Thank you. Yeah,
I think that the purpose of it is just, if you're not optimistic and you're thinking this is going to last 12 months or something, well, I think that's, if your team are hearing that from a leadership point of view, I wouldn't be even thinking it's doing that, so I wouldn't be saying it. But I think, as I said, if we look at the calendar, it's 42 days since it's sort of day one when Formula One stopped and all that, and we're definitely on the way back. So will it last for another 40-something days to get back to potentially close to the normality? I personally believe we'll get closer to the normality in less than that time, but there's going to be changes in the way we deal with things and the way we move on, but it's still optimistic compared to where we're at now. So
agree.
Yeah. So just go back a slide, George. Yeah, so again, it's only a matter of time. Customers still need to service their cars. It's only a matter of time before. I think I heard some numbers about some of the countries that are struggling with COVID-19 is the population base compared to Australia. New York, and I saw something on the current affair the other night, 780 square kilometres, hold me to it or not, with a similar population to just short of what Australia's is 18 million or something crazy like that. So, people are living on top of each other. We don't do that here. It's not that same. We've got the room around us. We've got space. So it's not as, I think it's we're in a better space in this country, definitely, and our results show that, and everyone's involvement has definitely helped that along too. So next slide, mate. So in the service space, I think we've got to help that positivity, you've got to have some facts about it too. And in our service space, if I look at our dealerships, I've got different variances across different states and different dealerships so as to how far we're down in business. Rule of thumb, probably some are down 50% in their service volumes compared to their normal state.
And that's quite substantial, half.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of those businesses are predominantly our metropolitan sites. Some vary. Some we've consolidated to help keep people on board and all that. I'll talk a bit about that later on. But ultimately, it has affected. There's no denying it. People have been asked to stay home, and we're an essential service. But in the current environment, do you need the services on your car? It's a need thing, but if they don't do it this month, they're still going to need to get it done next month or the month after if they want to keep putting it off. Eventually, they can't. It's false economy to not service your car.
Yes.
So the speed of the customer wanting to bring it in, that's the thing that's changed really. There's still a certain amount of customers who need to service their car, and ultimately, the better you can try and get that customer in to come in on their chosen, or when the car was due originally, the better. But there's only so much you can do there. You can't.
So Josh, can I ask you a quick question on that? Because I think obviously, given times, people having lost employment, given leave without pay, maybe half the hours that they're generally doing, obviously that's going to keep people at bay and maybe not servicing their car right now. You mentioned that they still need to do it. I mean, our vehicles are what gets us from A to B. There's very few of us, I think, that survive without a car. and myself, I think one thing that I thought, just from an outside perspective, I think a lot of people don't actually understand the price of servicing, including me, including me.
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, the service space has changed a lot from many years ago. All of our servicing in our dealership land is all cap price. The manufacturers, dictate the pricing of the servicing. It's in line with market expectations in many spots. It includes a lot of things that it's all strap and honest. You can go online, and the price of a service in Perth, where you are, is exactly the same price as it is in Melbourne, as it is in Dubbo, as it is in Cairns. It's pretty transparent now, and the industry had to look at all that, which definitely helped that. And that's that was put in place to lift our retention and do all that. So when you look at that, those customers who aren't servicing still would come in, still should come in, I should say. And the better
how do we get them to do that, Josh?
Yeah, so that's an industry problem that needs to improve. I think there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work in making sure the customers understand that at the start. So I'll use your own car as an example. You're driving a car that you bought from a dealership or not?
Correct, in Queensland. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So when you bought that car, were you taken to the service department and were you explained what you have to do and all that sort of stuff?
No, I was not.
Yeah, so,
they were happy to take my money.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the sales space. They sell the car, and if you look at your exposure to that dealership, it's probably a total of 2 or 3 days max in buying a car, and from a delivery point of view and financing, whatever you had to do, right? But the next 4 or 5 years, 6 years, however long you stay in that dealership, is spent in the service department. So the better that's transition at hand. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I've got my own opinions on how we do that, but you need to make sure.
In fact, I wasn't. So I wasn't. That wasn't discussed with me at all.
No.
And then because
sorry, what sort of car?
Pardon?
What sort of car?
Toyota Camry. So it's a 2009 Sportivo Toyota Camry. 170 Ks on the clock now. At the time of purchase, I think there was only about 40,000 on the clock. So it's an older car. Believe me, 200,000 clicks over. Great, and I've got myself a new car. So anyone out there want to help me with that? Put your hand up. Write it in the DMs now.
Toyota's a great cars. I was a service manager at Toyota dealership. Best experience. It was amazing. They're great cars.
It's the best car I've ever had. Best car I've owned. Great
car. But there's an example there where that car had cap price servicing when it was new, and those service intervals were capped by Toyota and included, servicing that as per the logbook. And I think off the top of my head, I started in 2007 with Toyota, so I reckon that service was either 110 or 120, 130, something like that, and that included a major service, minor service. So, why would you not get it serviced at a Toyota dealership if you were explained at the start and things like that? So,
I probably would have saved myself a great deal of money if I hadn't known that by now.
That's their sort of industry challenges that, to get customer awareness and education done right to get them back in the door. And in some businesses, it's very sales orientated, get the car out and we just assume they come back. So
we've got some great questions coming in here too, Josh. So we'll keep this one going and get to some of these questions soon.
Yeah, so look, I suppose from a business point of view, we actually had a strong month in March. It was a great month. I've been with this business now 9 months, so there's a lot of things that the group's done, we've done. It's going in the right direction. But unfortunately, April will be a record loss, and no other business would be recording the greatest result ever in April. It would be impossible, given that sales, there's businesses that are down anywhere in sales from 70-80%, and that's not my businesses. It's the businesses I know across the group. So sales in the new car space has just completely fallen off. April will be different to May, and May will be different to June. And I think it's all going to start, ramping back up again. Will it be?
I think with the stimulus packages that have been put out there, that JobKeeper, I think a lot of people are going to feel some relief very soon. I believe that that's coming in at the end of this month for a lot of people, and right through to mid-May. So you're definitely correct in saying I think there's going to be some relief very soon, which will make it for the general population that may have gone without leave, without pay, or had a decrease in hours. It's really going to help them to get back into the service centres and do the things that they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think servicing, as I said before, it's a need. You need to service your car. Sales is probably the part of the business that's going to hurt.
Yes.
Do you in economic times where it's a bit tougher and uncertainty, whatever, do you want to spend money on a new car that's, when you've got for instance, your Camry is a great car that'll keep going forever. So you weigh up when it's a difference between a want and a need. So we all would like a new car, but do you need a new car? And that's where these decisions get made, unfortunately. And whereas servicing, if you can only put off for so long, and you cause more damage, especially in some of these new cars. They're not designed to go too long without service intervals, and you've got to make sure that safety is paramount and all of that. So
that's when you add some hot new wheels.
That's it. I'll just go back. I'll just finish one side on that, George. It's challenging. It's changing daily. It's something that I don't believe you can make a decision in April that lasts till July. You've got to look at this, weekly, daily. You got to look at in the service space particularly. You want to make sure I can already see it just driving. The roads are busier, which means people are getting out and about, and the uncertainty and some of the scare that they've had to, or call it a scare, is starting to they're trying to get on with their lives a little bit within the rules, of course. So and for me, it's been different in all three states. We've got, as I said, I've got country dealers in rural areas of New South Wales that they've gone through drought. Then they've got all this, and it was tough for every business, to be honest, in the automotive space prior to all of these things. So some of our country dealers have copped it 3 times, with their own economies, and they're out in that area, and then this thing comes along, and it's a national problem. So they're not immune to it. Some of our country dealers in those areas have had cases, not that our dealerships have, but the areas had. So they're all doing everything that every other part of the country is doing as well. So
great.
All right, next one, George. I suppose personally, I think in these tough times for all, respecting your people and making sure your people are paramount and being looked after. And if you're making decisions that are very short term, and this thing lasts 2-3 months, it was tough getting good staff prior to this, good mechanics, good service advisors, good service managers, all that sort of stuff. And if your thinking is very short term, then at the end of it, there's going to be a need for these people. And I know mechanics who love to chop and change for $2 extra an hour, and loyalty goes completely out the window. And I think the better you look after your staff, and the better their inclusion in decisions are, and involvement in the reasons why. I'm on a 2-day roster. In April, I'm currently on annual leave, and 2 days unpaid, helping out where I can, doing what I can. And our whole corporate office has chosen to do that to support the dealers that are doing it tough. And
agreed. And I think it doesn't take a lot to reach out. We've got so many means of social interaction. It doesn't take a lot for us to reach out and just check in and see how everybody's doing. I think everybody likes to be asked how things are going and if there's anything that we can do. So working together is always going to be the best option there, rather than just turning a blind eye and thinking that it'll go away or the COVID crisis will finish tomorrow. So it's asking the questions, and that's what we're encouraging everybody to do here today, is to ask the questions that you're finding that you're really finding great challenge, because I know some of you are. Don't be shy, write those questions down, because that's what we're here for, to answer them.
Absolutely. Yeah, Yeah, you can just change another slide, George. If you look at these current times where you've got JobKeeper payments coming in, and you've got some of our businesses and some of the other businesses that I know in outside of the group, you're running short of staff to try and maximise, what's coming in. Maximise. When you're running at 50, 60, 70, 80% of, or more, probably 70% of your capacity, you're not going to need a full team of staff. But the last thing you want to do is get rid of 3 out of 10 staff if you had that as a maths sort of thing. We try and share it at the moment. That's how we're trying to deal with it, because there will be an end to all this. And there's tough times in all this. You've got mechanics who are working flat out, and while their counterpart who normally works next to them is at home and watching TV, and then the roster might flip or whatever, and then it's vice versa. And unfortunately, when you run sometimes on short staff, and it can burn people out. And if you could run a business with 5 people less prior to all of this, you probably would have. But there's a reason why you needed those 5 people, and you will need them at the end of it. So you've got to look after them and make sure they're there. And I'm sure the reward of all that will come back to you in spades when you do this. So you'll be judged on it. You'll be absolutely judged on it if you're throwing someone on a heap and see you in 2 or 3 months' time. I don't know how many businesses would do that, but if there were businesses out there doing that, and maybe they've got no choice, but it's how they handle that, and making sure that the people in that decision are.
I agree with that, Josh. Totally. I totally agree with that. And also one other thing too, I mean, some people don't have the choice. They actually have had to let go of employees. I've had to do it myself. However, I'm very small business in comparison to what we're talking on scale today. But given that, I think there's a lot that we can do as team members, as employees. If you want to keep your position, make yourself valuable. What can you bring? What can you add to the service? Can you adapt? Can you evolve? And I think it's important to have this ticking over in the back of your mind consistently, even in times where it might be sitting sweet and pretty and we're all in flying form. Because I think you're never replaceable. We're all replaceable, right? So you always want to be on your game.
Some of the positives out of all of this going on, you see, some apprentices and mechanics who, apprentices, for instance, who aren't earning great money. And I was one of those apprentices one day, a long time ago now, but and they're just part of trying to survive it. It's all about survival. There's no records being broken at the moment. It's about surviving, making sure the business survives, and wherever anyone can help in that space, it's going to lead to a stronger, better business. And I'm proud of what and how we've handled that. I think we will see the positives that come from handling it in this way at the end of all of this, for sure.
Great.
Just to give a bit of an example, there was no one blanket fix for low capacity workshops. This is something that I looked at it for our group. I didn't want to share too many trade secrets with you, but I think this one's pretty simple for most service managers to work out there. And with dealerships at 50% capacity, we tried to look at 2 teams and making sure the workloads are adjusted. So, with 2 teams at 50% and your bookings were at 50%, it just kept. It was sharing the love of tough times, I suppose, and making sure that everyone unfortunately had to feel the pain in some way of while it was tough. It was better to keep 2 teams at 50% productive than get rid of half the staff in a short-term plan, which was never going to be the case under my leadership anyway. So just adjusted the workload, making sure the workshop available hours were matched. So 50% capacity might have been great for the first week of April. It might be now 60%, or it might be 55 or 60, 70. And it's going to go back to, I think the next announcement, or the 22nd of May, or when the restrictions, whatever the restrictions are going to be lifted. And to be honest, I think there might be restrictions lifted even before that, as they get, or hopeful anyway, that will help the normality take a step back into life. So I think that's the biggest thing, is when people feel comfortable and there's a bit of normality, they can go and see their friends, they can do all those things, and that will lead to business normality as well. So
yes,
flexibility on staff, making sure that if you were busy, you needed to make sure that these people, techs, apprentices, advisors, whoever, they were happy to come back in as well, and you had somebody to fill that void as you slowly grow back into it, because it's not an on-off switch that goes off and then on and off and then on. So it's going to slowly, gradually come back, which it's doing now. So.
No, I've actually found personally that I've been busier during this time than I have not. And I know that's not the same for everybody. Some people are, rolling their thumbs around, waiting to be told they can come back to work. But I think you can be as busy as you want to be too. I think if you really want to get back into the workforce, back to your team, there is things that you can teach yourself on a virtual level that is going, and we were talking about this earlier, that will help assist others in the team. So, don't be afraid to put your hand up, I think, and say, hey, whilst I've had this time off, I've actually looked into this and I've done this virtually, and I wonder if we can incorporate this. So I think there's always things that we can do if we think outside that box.
Absolutely. Yep. Communication is a big part of it. Yeah. Communicating with your team. Not everyone's happy. Not everyone's going to be happy. Not everyone's accepting of what it is, but there's only so much that you can control to try and fix some of the problems, and ultimately, again, helping each other out is all what it's about. So, so the next slide, George, is just a bit of a breakdown of what we did in April, or this is a suggestion. Not every dealership was at 50% capacity. Not many of us were, actually. We were probably better than that. But one thing we chatted about is what happens if towards the start of April, if someone, for whatever reason, no one did or has had corona in our group, but if someone got coronavirus and it was a mechanic or something, there was a chance that the whole workshop would have had to close because of that. So we looked at options of having two teams. So it gave us a true two-stroke policy to make sure that we could still remain open. Unfortunately, if one team had a mechanic, then that may have stopped that team from working to a point. But luckily enough, we never.
That's a fantastic way to have to come up with a two-team option. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Look, I'm positive most service managers would have done something similar to this. It's not rocket science here. It's just about looking at your availability and how. I suppose my belief in doing this was that kept the team together in a number of dealerships, rather than potentially having to deal with it in other ways, which is not great. And it gives a chance for some of the people to step up in leadership. Assistant service managers running the business without a service manager there if need be. It's a fair and honest way of doing it. Again, it was just an idea to look at across to get the broader minds thinking in each dealership to go, that's if we can use this as a starting piece, and maybe we can't have the warranty clerk on this and we have him come in this, that, whatever it is. And it was ideally this goes in as quick as it goes out as quick as it comes in, because the more work we get in board, we need techs back and working. So just a bit of an idea, that's all. So from a manufacturer's point of view, they've helped out a bit, and well, some have done some others, and just some of the ideas that we've had changes, and contactless servicing. We've never even heard of that prior to any of this. So customer dropping keys off in boxes, and they online, they're paying for things and picking up the car at the end of the servicing, and quoting via video for service quotes. Your car needs this and that. Invoicing is being emailed. All that stuff turned on amazingly so quick, and it was just being resilient to the cause and trying to find other ways. And when we look at that, and then Ford, for example, here have offered to do pickup and delivery as an option to the customer, which is good and bad in different ways. You still need somebody to do it, and if you're short-staffed, you've still got to find someone to do it. But if the sales team are out there and they can help out there, then it's a good thing, and it gets the customer talking to a salesperson. I saw today, I just had a little bit of Google before and looked at what else is out there. And I'd love to say I'm involved in every dealership and every brand and know everything that's happening, but I'd be lying if I did. But Hyundai have got a 50% discount for hospital workers and all that sort of stuff. So free loan cars, things like that. So they're all, I think what you're doing here or how you handle this is going to be perceived definitely if you're supportive and looking at the cause, and you'll get judged on it from afar. So
I think this is just moving us, Josh, into the future. I think this is the way of the future, and I think we're just being forced to move a little bit faster with it now because of this epidemic that has come upon us. And I think if we can use this time to learn, but become resilient if we're not already, and learn the ropes now, we'll be in good stead for what's ahead.
Yeah, look, a lot of these things, if we go to the next slide, some of them are good, some of them I just think you've got to be, there's businesses offering taxis and Ubers instead of a courtesy bus, things like our courtesy bus. We used to pile 6 customers in a bus and drive them all around the city or drop them off where they do. We can't do that anymore. So customers, when they drop their car off, still need somehow to get back to where they need to go to. So things like that, as I said, pick up and delivery. We're sanitising cars like never before. I've never seen so many clean door handles. It's crazy. But that's what we've got to do. Making sure when the customer picks up the car, the car keys are locked in the car. Make sure you're insured for all of that as well. So the only thing I'll say about these initiatives that have only just come on really since COVID-19 impacted us in the service department is it's harder to remove some of these initiatives. Once you once you put something into space, and to remove it is sometimes deemed as a negative on what you do. So what I'm saying there is some of the offers to pick up cars, you've just got to be able to do all that too. If you're short-staffed and you're booked to your capacity of that staff you have available, to throw 3 or 4 people into different cars to go and pick them up, someone needs to be able to do that. So it needs to be thought of. And again, sometimes they're great ideas, great initiatives, but they've got to just be able to be done and followed through. So next one, mate. Probably just a strong part of the business is your call centers. If you're lucky enough to have a call center, or if you have your own team, making sure that that you're booking to capacity, and I suppose you can't say, all right, in May we're going to go back to 75%, and when you could have done that in the last week of April or something like that. So you just need to make sure that you're on top of your bookings. And if you have a call center, as I said, which we're lucky enough to do, we've got 2 of them, they're on top of the levels of what's in there, and I get a daily update on what we've got available in hours to book, and actually what we're booking, and it's interesting because that's starting to grow back, which is good. So
you can see that you've got Josh, the cancellations, and why. Like, exactly why isn't there? Why can't they be rebooking? And that's having strong communication again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, sometimes if your car's booked in a service department, and the service advisor who books you in, if that is controlled at his level for a cancellation, it gets put on the top tray, and I'll get to that. I'll ring that person at the end of the day, and I'll make sure then suddenly a week later that tray is still there, and it's building up. I think you've got to be on top of why people are cancelling at the moment. If there's unsurety, or there's there's a reason that they're cancelling, and cancellings are definitely higher than where they were prior to all of this. There's a chance to sort that out. You need to be aware of that on the day, or sooner rather than later, and definitely make communication. If you're making no communication, then you're well behind the 8 ball. So you've got to make sure that there's a process in place. And there's a lot of times we've had people wanting to cancel, and a simple conversations, we do this and we'll do this, and we can pick it up for you if you'd like, or we do this, and you win them over. And ultimately, that's what we want to do. So yes, can't leave that to the last minute. So just I suppose one tip that I like to challenge the people post this conference chat, whatever we call it, the webinar. Just pick up your phone and call your own service department and experience what a customer at the moment is. Like when we're short-staffed and we're trying to, I suppose, in a business save money because there's not as much money coming in and things like that. Sometimes the last thing that gets considered in all that is the customer satisfaction and the customer interaction. It's all good to have 50% 50% booking capacity, and you've got your mechanics set up, and instead of 3 customer serving service advisors, you've only got 1 or 2, and they're booking out. No one's answering the phone. Well, you can burn people in these periods, and the easiest way is to be a customer and pick up the phone.
They're just going to call the next person in line if you don't answer your phone.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just it's the easiest thing to do. Pick up the phone and just see what your customer experience, and it'll change every time you do it, but it'll give you a good chance to see, what your current environment's doing, and even in good times you should be doing this. So.
And I think you said it right there too on that last bullet point. Put yourself in the shoes of a customer in this current climate. Let's just think about what sort of service we want. What is the service? I hold a pretty high standard, and because of that, I deliver a high standard. So I think if we have those high standards and we treat them just as we would expect, I think everybody should be able to retain at least some of those customers that they do have coming to them.
Absolutely. I think if you're what's the word I'm looking for? If you're a customer in the current environment, happy to service with a dealership, that's from a dealership point of view, you should be more thankful for that customer trusting in you and doing everything that.
Absolutely.
So you can't do it at half a service either. You've got to acknowledge and I would say reward. Is that the word? I don't know. I buy coffee from a coffee shop every morning, and I've done it every day since this COVID. Normally I buy one every second, third day just on the ad hoc, and their service to me is fantastic, and I go there every day. I just wave at him, one, done, and then it's there. Yeah. I'm doing it, I don't know why, to support them, and because they do such a great job. I don't normally drink coffee, but they're just, good customers.
I don't know whether that's the case now, Josh. I think you might come out of this COVID like a coffee addict by the sound of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, next one, George. So just a bit more on that, just make sure you're booking your capacities, looking at all that sort of stuff. As I said, try and book a car in for a 20K service and act like a new customer and see what sort of experience. Because at the moment, if you've got short staff, and most service departments that I know of, if not, I'd say nearly all of them, aren't running at the same capacity they have in better times. So, if you're booked out for more than 1 or 2 days with short staff, you probably need to start looking at that, and that's a good sign that you're probably coming back. But if you're making a call to book a car in and your team are saying to that that you're booked out for another 2 weeks or something, well, your return's going to take a lot longer if that's what you're telling your customers. So just make sure the tail's not wagging the dog there. Because in quiet times, some people do like quiet times, and from a business point of view, that's not going to help anyone. So last slide is, I think it's the second last. No, there's a couple more, sorry. Just making sure your service KPIs, I won't delve too much into this. There are some benchmarks out there in the industry. Making sure that you're ticking along here. I think the better businesses have their own KPIs that are sometimes better than these KPIs, and just make sure you're monitoring. If you were doing something really well in good times, there's no reason you can do that at a lower volume in the worst of times. So it's all about your percentages and penetrations. If you're doing 100 cars or 200 cars, it's still about what penetration or percentages you're getting on certain items and things. So just make sure you're obviously keeping an eye on that as well. So I think this is the last slide from my side, I think. It's unprecedented at the moment, and there's no rule book. And I suppose my discussion here, as I said, is predominantly my opinions on things. It's not necessarily Autopact's or anything like that. It's just, I suppose, my experience or what I believe may or may not happen. And Captain Hindsight is a good call on this, because in 2 months' time, I Googled today to prepare for this. I googled March 13th or something and looked at some of the news websites that were just as coronavirus was starting to hit on, and the world was going to, explode and cave in and all that.
Yep.
And then yeah, that's right. And you look at 42 days later, here we are, and we're definitely on the, we've gone to the top of the roller coaster, and I'm pretty confident to say, personally, I think we're on the way back. It will be a tougher economy. The parts in our space is the sales area is obviously going to hurt for a while, which then affects us in 12 months' time when the cars are due for servicing. And our pool of cars due in 12 months' time, in 24 months' time, in 36 months' time, will all be affected by what happens in April, May, June, July. And it was already tough prior to this in sales. So it's going to be, look, there's an element of positivity to looking at what we've got to do, but there's going to be a reality in volumes will probably decline and be less in sales, and that hurts our internal part of the business and all that sort of stuff. So, I'd love to give you the real answer on how to fix it, but it's ring me in 3 months' time and I'll tell you how.
Yeah, well, I think we've got some pretty good questions here for you waiting, Josh. So I think George is going to get them all ready and up for us. So I'm going to let George take this away here. George is going to get those questions up, and I think there's some really great questions here that I think maybe you can help answer.
I'll just submit the questions as they come, and I'll get Frank on as well. But for now, they're very much Josh related. So there's the first one.
What do you believe are the biggest challenges facing dealerships now moving forward? Well, I think I just ended with that. Definitely volume. With new car sales on the decline, and I'll say on the decline, but I know one thing that the manufacturers will do is they'll fight for market share. So if there's a good time to buy a car, Vonnie, it's definitely sooner rather than later.
Yep.
They'll come out all guns firing, and unfortunately, not unfortunately, the consumer will be we'll have the choice of many to pick from, and
please make sure anyone that can help me with that puts up their details. Please feel free to pass my email and phone number on.
Yeah. So look, there's a number of challenges. It's probably how quick the government turns around and says we're back on. I think that the positivity that comes with that is almost the front door being opened, and that's and I suppose just the challenges of some of the manufacturers servicing and cap price servicing, and what we touched on before, Vonnie, making sure the customers are aware of what's included, what's not included. The better they understand that, the better they stay in dealership land, the better they potentially buy tyres. There's a plug for TyreConnect. There you go. So, yeah. They've seen across the results in reforms which are good for consumers such as telehealth. Do you think that we can look at forward service centres remaining open longer in the day, meeting customer needs and perhaps service staff and shift-based? That's that varies from business to business, Stephen. If I look at if there's work there, absolutely you want to stay open. The challenging part is it costs a lot to keep these businesses open. That's probably one thing that may come out of this is some of these dealerships to remain open, and rent costs, and keeping the businesses ticking the manufacturers' expectations and all that sort of stuff. There's no benefit other than, I suppose, there's customer satisfaction benefit on servicing after hours and longer hours and things like that. But
I think those government stimulus packages are where that's going to be helpful. So we can
absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's probably a tough one to answer on a quick yes, it will or it won't. It just depends. I had a business that was open on Thursday nights, and that was a success. Getting trade customers in the door and things like that. But not everyone can do that. It just varies so much. So
You know, what changes have you made during this pandemic and that you will continue to retain after this all blows over?
I think when you look at that, the customer's expectation on cleanliness and hygiene and all that won't change, I don't think, moving forward. You know, the ability to drop off a car or contactless servicing, I think that's here to stay for the ones who choose to do that. There's still customers who love the interaction. I know many customers who love bringing their car and having a chat about their pride and joy.
Yeah.
It's the second biggest investment, I remember that. So I think there's a better customer interaction when you do that. But when you consider everything else is online and can be done at 2 clicks, and probably our industry's heading that direction.
Bobby, if I can just intervene here with you, Josh, that's a great question, because there is actually, you know, one of the things that I think that I will do more of, and that we will do more of, and I'm in the fitness and health industry, is we've been having weekly meetings via, you know, Click platform, Zoom platform, virtual platform. And it only has to be, you know, relatively quick. Everyone's there and no one has to travel. And just jumping in a quick few questions and a couple of things you can go over. And I think that has really brought us together as a team tighter than ever before. So whilst, you know, we're not using our cars for that, we're still going to be taking those trips as soon as the COVID crisis is over. We'll be needing to service those cars with all the long distance trips we'll be taking. I do think the virtual side is going to be something that's going to stick a little bit harder.
Yeah, I think technology in automotive service departments has still been fairly prehistoric in many ways. The customer drops the car off, someone meets them, we get paper, we type it in and we write it and see you later, and at the end of the day. So there's video technologies out there now, there's a whole heap of stuff, but yeah, there's a number of things that you can do. It's I think ultimately this is going to be controlled by what customers want too.
Another good question. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah. Stephen, in the dealership service centre, will initiatives to retain customers be important moving forward?
Oh, I think they're always important, regardless of what period you're in. We've got, you look at our retentions and look at industry benchmarks on retention, and like, you want to make sure that the people come back, and that's, you know, the world on dealership has changed a hell of a lot there. So the manufacturers control a lot of this as well with their cap price initiatives, and yeah, making sure that cars are coming back in. You know, some of the big changes are time scheduling as opposed to kilometres. So some of these people that aren't driving now, they still need to bring their car back on time basis and things like that. So yeah, look, there's a number of initiatives. Each dealership has to fight that one themselves, I reckon. I'm not going to give away my secrets in that space.
I love a good initiative.
Yeah,
keep them coming.
The truth of the reward of it is, when you do something well, is to see it, your retention lift, and if you're doing something in that space, it helps everyone. So, oh yeah,
get that crystal ball out.
That was a pre-submitted question.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that obviously the next discussion in May 22nd, or the restrictions and all that, just depends on how what they allow us to do, and that'll determine, you know, what. Easiest way, the more people feel comfortable about the before, or back to where we were, the better then this is over. So May, potentially June, unfortunately, is I think May will be reality of, you know, if we look at, we're 42 days since we sort of started this journey, we're definitely past the middle, I would say, from a pandemic point of view. So if you had to add an extra 30 days on where we're at now, that sort of gets us to where our restrictions are going to be announced, or 20-something days time, whatever it is. And then they won't let everything off on the first hit, I wouldn't imagine. So.
Oh, Dominic, is this one for me? due to more people doing home workouts and daily running and exercising, do you think people will not use their vehicles as much and only service every 2 years? Yeah, I think that's directed at me. I'll answer that. Look, it's great if you're all doing more home workouts and you're exercising more. Kudos to you. Fantastic. That's exactly what I'm about to dive into real quick before we finish for today. I've got some helpful tips that might help you all during this epidemic and the isolation. Do I think that it's going to affect people servicing their cars? No, I don't. I think as soon as the gates open, the borders open, I think we're all got some awesome driving expeditions and adventures to have. And I think everyone's going to be wanting to make sure their car is safe and ready to go for the family. So I don't think that's going to affect that too much. And I will be servicing my car and hopefully getting some hot new wheels to go with that as well.
But can I add something on that? If you look at the current environment of, if you had to travel anywhere at the moment, the cleanest, best place you'd want to do that, other than if you had the option of public transport, well, you can't fly, you can't do all that, is your own car. Debatable if you've got anywhere to go. But it's one thing that's been surprising for our country dealers is the amount of people that have serviced their car because they've had to drive to Sydney as opposed to fly to Sydney or do whatever. And so that is a positive in one respect. That customers are definitely choosing, if there is a mode of transport that they have to use, the car's the choice.
Look, I totally agree. I get in my car just to get away from the kids and turn up that music and drive. Like I just drive for kilometres at a time. So yes, servicing is very important for me to keep myself safe.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
All right, we good?
Yeah.
Questions there, George?
Yeah. One last segment, courtesy of Vonnie. I'm not going to steal your thunder, Vonnie. If you want to take it away.
All right, that's good. Yeah, so before we finish, everyone, I just thought I'd give, just because, we can all be light and happy, and we've had some great questions here that I think Josh has answered fantastically. And I think this has gone really well for our first webinar series for More Than Tyres. So thank you so much, Josh, for sharing that wisdom and expertise with us. You've had plenty of years of experience there, so thank you. And TyreConnect for putting this all together so that we can all jump on this platform and ask some of those valuable questions that were answered today. But the reality is we are still in an epidemic. We are still all feeling levels of anxiousness and stress, maybe some sleep deprivation, maybe device addiction and things like that. So I thought I'd just jump into something really quick, and you guys can jot this down. There might be some valuable points here that you can use at home, not just for yourself, but for your family in transitioning between work and your home, and vice versa, of course. So number one is, for me, you all know that I'm a health and wellness coach and speaker. It's about getting moving. I had a moment, I'll just bring it back to me personally the other morning. I'm essentially a high energy person. I don't have a lot of trouble with motivation. That's why I love to motivate myself. However, it doesn't mean that I don't have down days. It doesn't mean that I don't have moments of question and anxiety. And I have actually suffered from anxiety in the past, but I've worked on it, and I think I'm in a lot better position now in my life. I think that comes with experience and building resilience and growth along the way as well. But move your body. If you're I had that anxious moment and I was laying there in bed and I reached for my phone and I started scrolling, and I actually felt worse about 4 to 5 minutes in, looking at posts that just had no relevance to really what I needed to be viewing. Hot bikini bods and boobs and butts and all of that. And I kind of lost my way, and it really did pull me under. So what I did was I'm not sure if any of you know who Mel Robbins is. She's a motivational expert globally, and she has a 5-4-3-2-1 rule that she uses. It's the 5-second rule. Most people around the globe know this one, and it's changed. It actually did change my life in the sense of whenever I had those moments, I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I jumped out of that bed and I got my sneakers on, and I only had 20 minutes. That's all I had before I had to be at the office in Claremont. And I felt 100% better after that. Honestly, I think it was 12 minutes. I took a run, I come back, I had a cold shower, and I put my clothes on, got ready, out the door. I still got to work on time, and I was able to go through my day without a massive cloud over me. So that is number one for me, get moving. Number two, get outdoors. I'm lucky enough to live in Scarborough. I live by the ocean here in WA. I love the ocean, and I find it always is de-stressing for me. If you live near a hiking trail, if you live somewhere where you can just get outdoors and breathe in a bit of nature, then go do it, because there is science behind the stress levels that actually can decrease, and that's not just me making it up. The science is there to back it up. So if you can get out, even if it's just for a short period of time, do that. Staying connected, we all know that, and we've heard it so many times before, just because we're in isolation, some of us are living on our own. I'm fortunate enough to have a family of, little people around me, and a partner as well, but not everybody's in that position, and it's important to remember that. And if you're somebody that is in a position like mine and have friends that have no one, please stay in contact with them, because you only have to be down for a few days in order for heavy levels of anxiety and depression to start to kick in. And we all know where depression can lead to. I've actually lost a very close friend, my first boyfriend actually, from many, many years ago, to depression. And he didn't reach out, and nobody knew. And it's times like right now in a COVID crisis, whereas a lot of people over the globe in isolation that might need a little bit of a pull up. So keep communication open, I think, is a really big one. If you wake with anxiety, I think I covered that. There was a few questions that come in the other day, which was great, that George ferried over to me. So I answered that. If you're waking and you're feeling anxious, use that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I swear to you, it works. If you make it a habit, it somehow, some way, it works. Another good one, while you guys are in transition, I hope you're all writing really quickly here, because I don't want to go too far over. We're at 1:02. A quick one here is audio booking and podcasting. Now, I actually did not even do this up until 2 years ago. I cannot believe the amount of time I wasted in the car, although I wouldn't call listening to music and singing a waste of time. Sometimes you need to just turn it up and sing it out loud. However, it's a mobile university. Why not, if you're in the car, put on a podcast, pick a topic. I use Castbox. It's free, completely free. I can look up any topic that I'm interested in, and I can have a mobile university in my car as I drive. Hey, there's a good commercial there, guys. And then audio booking, same thing. You've got a great audio book that you don't have time to read, then put it in your ear set on the headset and listen to that as you drive. It's a really great way to de-stress as well. And then I guess the last two main ones, because we've got to go today, is for health in the office and home. Everyone's snacking, everyone's eating more, probably because they're at home. I know I am. I think it's not the camera that's lying today. I actually probably have put on a couple of kilo over this COVID crisis. You'd think that a sports coach and a health coach would be actually in better stead, but I have been eating a lot more because, look, I'm at my desk a lot programming. So what I do is I meal prep twice a week, and that includes some snacks, cutting up veggies and fruit and putting it in containers ready to go. I made some great protein balls the other day. I've got a heap of them for the kids and for myself. I freeze some of them so they keep for longer. and just making sure that you're getting enough sleep. You know, we can scroll until midnight on our phones, or we can switch off and we can get, you know, that 6 to 8 hours. Some of us need a little bit less. I'll let you be the determinator there. But there's some great tips. I hope some of them help you guys. I wanted to say thank you again to the team at TyreConnect. Thank you so much, Josh. I didn't get to talk to Frank. I know you're there. Thank you very much. I hope all of you listening in today had some benefit from this and got your questions answered. If there's anything further, this is obviously going to be viewable through links. So it'll be recorded and it'll be available for you as well there. So this is going to be a monthly appearance, I think. So hopefully, if it all went well today, you guys would like to give us some feedback. We'll be back in May with a brand new speaker and some brand new topics to speak about in the automotive industries.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Great.
Thanks
very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Cheers.
George.